Good evening, everyone. I'm Catherine Deering. I'm a past president and longtime member of the League of Women Voters of Northeast Westchester, or LWV New, as we call ourselves, and we are hosting this event. I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're watching live or a recording, to our candidate forum for Bedford Town Board. The League is happy to offer this forum as an opportunity for the community to hear directly from the candidates who seek to serve in these offices. Election day is Tuesday, November 7th, and early voting will be available from Saturday, October 28th through Sunday, November 5th. For more information about that, please go to our website, lwvnew.org. So our web address is easy, lwvnew.org. It includes a link to information about the early voting sites and explains how New York State has changed the rules regarding absentee ballots and a couple of other bits of information you might find interesting. There also, you can find a link to the online version of your personalized voter's guide at vote411.org. Our paper voter's guide is a thing of the past, but you can get a customized version on vote411.org. where candidates have provided brief summaries of their qualifications, and there's information about the 2 statewide propositions. And you can actually, at the end, print out what you've decided to do and take that into the voting booth with you. The LWV New website also offers a step-by-step guide on how to use Vote 411 for those who need a little help learning to use a new website. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which promotes political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We welcome new members and encourage anyone with an interest in participating to join us. Our website includes a spot where you can apply for membership or make a donation to help support our work. There will be no audience participation tonight. The Bedford residents were given the opportunity to submit questions in advance, and our moderator will be reading them to the candidates. So let's get this forum started. First, I'd like to welcome our timekeeper, Lisa Pizzuero, who's a past president of the League, and I think is serving as membership chair this year, but she's our timekeeper tonight. And Lisa, do you want to hold up the signs you're going to be showing? She'll be giving the candidates warnings for when they're supposed to stop talking. And finally, I'll welcome our moderator, Alice Tenney. She lives in Mamaroneck, because we always have a moderator from outside the district, and she's a member of the Larchmont Mamaroneck League. She's an experienced moderator, and I'm sure she's going to do a great job for us this evening. So with that, I'll turn the table over to Alice Tenney, and I'm going to disappear.
Thank you, Catherine, for your very kind and optimistic introduction. And good evening to our candidates and to our viewers. It's my pleasure to be here. And as Catherine said, I'm not a voter in this district. So before we get started, I'd like to go over some ground rules. The order of the opening statements has been determined by lots that were drawn before the meeting. The order of closing statements will be in the exact reverse order. The order in which the candidates will respond to questions will be rotated to assure fairness. Throughout the forum, no comments of a personal or abusive nature will be permitted. I have the ability to rule this out of order. The allotted time for opening and closing statements is 90 seconds, a minute and a half. The timekeeper will indicate when 30 seconds remain in the allowed speaking time, and again when the time is up. The moderator will address each question to each candidate, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. And as I said, the order of the candidates' responses will be rotated. Question response times will be strictly enforced. A timekeeper, which you have seen, will be visible on screen to alert us and the candidates when 30 seconds of response time are remaining and when to stop. A candidate will be allowed to finish a sentence that was once started. Each candidate will be allowed one rebuttal in the course of the event. Rebuttal time is 30 seconds. There are no responses to rebuttals. However, during closing statements, the moderator may grant a 30-second rebuttal if it is deemed appropriate. Candidates will not interrupt one another or the moderator during the forum. The moderator will have the authority to pause the proceedings to enforce the ground rules and the format. And except for time limits, the only restriction on candidate statements and answers are respect and civility. And with that, I will introduce the candidates in the order that I chose them by lot. First, we have Thomas Catalliato. Next, we have Mike Palladino. Number 3, Bobby Bitker. And number 4, Don Scott. And with that, we will get started with opening statements. So first, we will hear from Thomas.
So thank you, Alice, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. This is my first go around with this, so I'm extremely excited. I'm extremely excited because you guys allow us to have a forum where our constituents can hear, what all of us are about, right? It's not just about me or any of the other candidates, it's about all of us, so that the constituents have, and all the townspeople have, the ability to hear about, who we are, what we're about, and where we came from, and what we're going to do in the future. A little bit about me, Thomas Catalliato, Manhattan College graduate with mechanical degree in engineering, an MBA out of St. John's in executive management, licensed professionally out of the state of New York engineer. Was originally on the town's planning board in 2016, and then jumped to the town board in 2022 when I saw the opportunity to serve the town in what I thought was a way that I could invoke more positive change than they could have on the planning board. So I'm 18 months into being a town board member, and we've accomplished some really good things, and I really look to accomplish further things. I'm a father of 3, Stella, Luca, and my newest, John Thomas, and a proud, again, individual who has moved to Bedford in 2013, been here 10 years, and looks to continue to serve the town of Bedford for the next 4 years if reelected.
Thank you. Number 2, Mike, please.
Yes, hi, good evening. And before I start, I just wanted to say that the people of Israel are in our thoughts and prayers today and every day. Secondly, I wanted to thank the League for hosting us tonight. My name is Mike Palladino. I'm running because Bedford's special to me. I grew up in Yorktown, but I spent summers here working as a Bedford Hills camp counselor. I met my future wife at a marketing firm on Adams Street, just out of college. And we purchased our forever home in 2016 and live in downtown Bedford Hills. I've had my family join us here. My brother and sister-in-law moved in 2 years ago down the road, and we've made countless and lifelong friends with our neighbors. So Bedford isn't just a town. It's where my family and friends are. It's where I see my future, and it's why I'm here tonight. I'm running to ensure that Bedford remains a cherished and vibrant community for generations to come. That demands a town board that is fully plugged into the needs of its residents. And I promise to be that advocate. And I know that I can do better as your public servant, one who listens, one who engages, and one who acts. Thank you.
Next, Bobby, please.
So big thank you to the League of Women Voters for recognizing the importance of public discourse, and to you for joining us. I'm Bobby Bitker, and I am grateful to be running for re-election to the Bedford Town Board. 30 years ago, I moved to Bedford, and the pitch for moving here from my then fiance, Eric, was simple. I grew up here, I love it, and it's a great place to raise a family. 3 decades later, families are flocking to Bedford for the same reasons. For my years of public service and my work as a civil rights attorney, I built experience in budgeting, finance, negotiating, creative problem solving, community building, teamwork, and adaptability, all vital leadership skills. 4 years ago, I promised to take Bedford's leading climate action to the next level, to develop new initiatives and seek out untapped grants to increase services while holding the line on taxes, to expand housing options while preserving Bedford's character, to spark smart economic development, but not unbridled growth, and to improve cell service to support public safety, all to enhance your quality of life. We delivered on these promises and more despite the COVID pandemic. I plan to build upon these successes and continue to move Bedford forward with you, my partners in this work. It's been my honor to advocate for you, and I hope to earn the privilege of continuing in this role. Thank you.
Thank you. Don, your opening statement. You're on mute, Don.
Thank you. I'd like to echo the comments about Israel too. It's hard to not think that some of the things that we're talking about here are small compared to the atrocities committed last weekend, and I'm sure it's on all of our hearts as we engage in public discourse. And I'd also like to thank the League for doing this, as well as thanking my opponents and running mate for deciding to run. I think it's really important that people are involved. My Bedford story starts in 4th grade at Bedford Elementary when my family moved here from Kentucky. It's a wonderful place. I've enjoyed the connection to Bedford. I moved away and came back after high school and came back to raise a family here. And we're living in the house that we moved into pregnant with our now 36-year-old daughter. So it's in my blood. I got off the board 5 years ago and have been involved still. And I never miss a board meeting. I feel like Michael Corleone. I try to leave, but they keep dragging me back. But actually, it's not they that's dragging me back, but my interest in serving the community. We've run a different campaign here, as I think you can see. Hot pink signs, cheeky messages, social media, door-to-door engagement, coffee shop meetups, and gathering feedback from constituents. And we have run a campaign built on ideas. And I look forward to participating in this discussion and letting you know the plans that we have for our community.
Thank you to all for your opening statements. Our first question, the question is, and at any time if a candidate would like me to repeat the question, I'm happy to do it. But first question, what makes you qualified to be a Bedford Town board member, excuse me? What skills do you have that set you apart from your opponents? We'll start with Thomas, please.
Okay. So what makes me qualified to be a Bedford Town Board member? One, I've actually sat on the town board for 18 months and I'm in my second now budgeting session. Previously, I was sitting on the planning board for 6 years from 2016 to 2022. Have been a member of the Wireless Facility Working Group, as well as the Bedford Village Mini Master Plan, where I have worked directly with other members of the town, working on the comprehensive plan for Bedford Village. My technical background in mechanical engineering and being a logician and a reasonable, practical, down-to-earth individual, coupled with my business acumen as a business owner, makes me a multi-dimensional individual who analyzes things much differently than other individuals. And with that, I can bring a special skill set to the board when it comes to decision-making.
Thank you. Same question, Mike.
Sure. I think that voters should back candidates who exhibit a genuine eagerness to invest their time and energy in service to the town. And I really hope that my record here in Bedford over the last few years can serve as a blueprint of what they can expect from me. With few exceptions, I've attended nearly every single town board meeting over the last 2+ years. So I am in tune with everything going on here in town. I haven't been afraid to voice my concerns either. And I've worked tirelessly on raising awareness on some important issues that affect this community. I do it because I care. I care when we lose out on grant funds due to poor planning. I care about the recent trend of outsourcing duties to external and costly consultants. And I get a little frustrated when these town board meetings fly by without any questions being asked. Bedford's a great place, but it requires effective leadership to ensure it remains that way for generations to come. And that's exactly what I plan to do in my 4-year term.
Thank you. Bobby.
Thank you. So in addition to my experience on the town board, I have a diversity of experience personally in emergency services. I have experience in policy making and law, I have not missed a town board meeting in probably the last 5 years, and I've engaged with many of the community committees and boards that we have in town. I sit on the Senior Advisory Board. I sit on the Prison Relations Advisory Committee. I go to most of the Veterans Advisory meetings. I have done grant writing. I successfully won the DIG grant, which is major economic revitalization for the downtown hamlet in Bedford Hills. And I work closely with the finance department and have curbed spending. And I feel like this is just a vast diversity of experience that I bring to the table.
Thank you. Don.
I guess one of the things that qualifies me or makes me qualified and sets me apart from my opponents is that I'm probably the only Medicare eligible candidate. That's given me a few gray hairs, and I think I bring a valuable life experience to the board and some wisdom in addition to some deep and diverse community background in community leadership and service. My experience is broad across multiple areas, schools, libraries, across the ball fields, at the townhouse. I served on the town board for 5 years. I have more board experience than anyone running. I've actually passed legislation to keep vape shops away from our kids, and to pass legislation to get rid of dilapidated buildings in our community that drag down real estate prices. And I led the charge, and I'm quite proud of leading the charge with the state and federal government to get a dangerous stretch of I-684 repaved. So I'm experienced, ready to get going and bring a perspective to the board that no one else does.
Thank you. Question 2. What will you do to foster transparency in local government? We'll start with Mike, please.
Love it. This is a great question for me. I think it's one of my strongest assets too. I've spent a great deal of time designing my campaign this year to highlight that. I've knocked on hundreds of doors, speaking to and engaging with as many residents as possible. We've gathered feedback and published a list of 101 ideas for Bedford, so voters know exactly what we're focused on. I've initiated and promoted a series of mobile office hours, jumping from hamlet to hamlet and meeting with residents at bagel shops, coffee houses, and bars. I do this to showcase my accessibility because that's what this role demands, and I will continue doing so long after Election Day.
Thank you. Bobby.
Yeah, I also think this is a great question because fostering transparency is something that we prioritized 4 years ago. So even before COVID, we were working to make meetings more accessible to seniors, to people with disabilities, young families, and others who struggle to attend nighttime meetings. After Zoom meetings were no longer required, we continued to provide them so as many people as possible in town could access them. And we brought discussions that were formerly happening behind closed doors out into the public sphere. We instituted more frequent work sessions so that our decision-making process could be public. And under Supervisor Calvis, we included fewer items in the consent agenda and brought more presentations and discussions public. We consistently solicit and respond to feedback from residents and businesses and stakeholders.
Thank you. Don.
Yes. As Mike mentioned, Mike and I collaborated on 101 ideas for Bedford, and many of the ideas touch on improving transparency. Just to touch on a couple of things. First, when I was on the communications committee, I was proud to help negotiate the cable contract for the town, which brought us a significant contribution from Verizon and Optimum in order to put the video studio in our townhouse and to start broadcasting meetings. So I'm proud of that. I have other ideas on what we could do to help with transparency. One thing is to bring back a transparency portal. There's some great software that makes the budget live and allows the community members to access it rather than sifting through dozens or hundreds of pages of financial data and get the information that they want and to have them be involved and get their questions answered. I'd also like to bring a CRM system to the town so that every suggestion and complaint is logged, tracked, and until it's resolved. And it's great information for town board members and to help improve service for our customers, which are our constituents and our residents.
Thank you. Question 3. Please name an issue facing each of the 3 hamlets and then—
Alice, I did not get a chance to respond.
Oh, I apologize.
That is okay. That's okay. You said early on that might happen today. So, but I will be brief. Again, to the other 3 candidates' points, great question. Transparency, I think, is paramount in especially local elections and local politics. It's something that a lot of local municipalities struggle with. I'm an individual in my elected position currently, and if reelected, continues to reach out to everybody and anybody I can in any walk of life when it comes to the town of Bedford. It could be at a fundraising outing, at a golf outing. It could be in the hamlet of Bedford Village, where my kids are walking up and down with other parents and kids after school on a school day. It could be in Bedford Hills, where I'm constantly meeting with other board members to look at how we can make things a little better over there and bring economic vitality and sustainability to Bedford Hills. It could be going to Taza for coffee in Katona with other townspeople. One thing that I think we can do, and I think Bobby touched on it, is continue to offer Zoom meetings to not only town board meetings, but other permitting board meetings like we do already with the zoning board and the planning board. I know before, when I was sitting on planning and we didn't have Zoom meetings, it was hard to get people to attend those meetings. But now that we have Zoom, we're seeing an increase in people who are actually attending those permitting board meetings. Thank you.
Again, my apologies to the candidate.
Okay. You said it was going to happen, so.
Yes, and I was correct right off the bat. Question 3, please name an issue facing each of the 3 hamlets and then elaborate on how you would address one of them. We'll start with Bobby, please.
Sure. I think that one of the things that's addressing really every hamlet is vitality. And that's something we've worked really hard to address. It was a challenge really at the beginning of my term because of COVID, and we pivoted on that, but we got really on it. And there were a few steps that we took to deal with that. I actually happen to be calling right now from my own family's business in downtown Bedford Hills. And we, in the last year, just a few businesses have opened right here in the Bedford Hills hamlet. We engaged a business promoter as a partner in the town board's work to help us drive the process forward. She's supporting efforts to develop a Bedford Hills chamber. We have a Bedford Economic Alliance that's working to get all the 3 business districts working together. We secured the county DIG grant, which is a major economic revitalization support. We are planting new trees. We've got sidewalk upgrades. We've increased infrastructure, including sewers and traffic safety improvements, which mostly have been funded by grants. We've got business owners interested in the train station space, and I think this multi-pronged approach has been reaping visible benefits.
Thank you. Don.
3 hamlets, all of them kind of like our children are different. Bedford Village, thinking about that, wonderful that the downtown area is going to get connected to the upgrade for the elementary school. But what I'd like to do for Bedford is Bedford Village is to bring parking there. There's a 1950s parking plan that needs to be finished. It's been talked about. The property's there. We need to make it easier to park. Traffic safety is a challenge in Bedford Village. That's something that we need to work on. I chair the traffic safety working group. So that is something that we need to do for Bedford Village. Katona, vacancies are an issue, not as much as they are in some of the other hamlets. But what we need to tackle in Katona is infrastructure. We've got some really ratty looking medians in the travel through there, and there are things that we can do to improve those and make them more attractive. And then finally, Bedford Hills, obviously, hamlet vitality, -- the grant is nice, but we can do more. We need specific plans. We need a plan for parking. We need to bring a business into the train station. And I'm happy to have negotiated the MTA lease that allows the town to do that.
Thank you. Tom.
Okay, Katona, again, Don, I don't disagree with you there. I am just going to touch on some safety issues. Again, that train crossing sometimes could be a challenge. I was there today. That is something that traffic safety, I think at Katona can use some improvement. Bedford Hills, I'm going to agree with the other 2 candidates as well up for election and re-election. It's economic vitality and sustainability in Bedford Hills. I think we all know that. I think we're all going to talk about that. I think that's the focus of of any of us who gets elected or reelected. And Bedford Village, Don, to your point, parking is one, but infrastructure is another, and they do go hand in hand. But right now we have a really unique ability to partner with the Bedford Central School District because they are out of compliance with their sewage treatment plan. So we do have a letter of intent to work with them for them to provide funding, for us to go out for a 75% grant to get a business sewer district formed, which happened last Tuesday, and ultimately bring additional businesses and additional business types to Bedford Village, because with influent and effluent in water and outwater, you can sustain different types of businesses and really create sustainability.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, I think that we've covered the Katona and Bedford Village concerns. I'm aligned with Don and Tom on that for sure. I think Bedford Hills is where I am really focused on. And I don't think it's a hamlet that can just fix itself. We need to be proactive in our approach. To me, that means building a comprehensive, data-driven action plan. I think we have to develop metrics to effectively assess and quantify our progress when looking at things like business retention and recruitment. I believe strongly this is a job for our town board and not an outsider. We need to be focused on engaging with all key stakeholders, landlords, tenants, and residents. I am excited to get started on this.
Thank you. Moving on to our fourth question.
May I have?
All right. Yeah, excuse me.
May I have a rebuttal, please?
Yes.
So I just wanted to rebut the idea where Mr. Palladino was talking about the idea of outsourcing to consultants and that town board members are not doing the work. So historically, the town has hired consultants in many areas where we don't have full-time staff. It's really standard practice for municipalities. We only applied 1.7% of our ARPA funds to hire the Bedford promoter, who really is an amazing resource. It's well worth the investment to revitalize the businesses townwide, help a long-needed Bedford Hills chamber to develop. If we want things done well, we really need to put resources behind them. And it's a misconception that hiring a consultant is a substitute for the town board doing the work. They help set the work we do. They're partners in the vision we're driving forward, and we continue to employ standard practices which are effective and save money in the long term. So thank you.
Thank you. Question 4. The volunteer fire and ambulance agencies are experiencing a lack of volunteerism and are challenged to fully staff calls. What do you think the town board should do to help with this problem, if anything? We'll start with Don, please.
I'm a former fire commissioner in Katona, so I recognize the importance of the volunteer fire department and ambulance. It's crucial. We would be spending millions, if not tens of millions, if we didn't have 3 all-volunteer fire departments. So it is vital to our community. I'd like to, one of the 2 or 3 things that come to mind. One is town employees, like the old days, should be encouraged to participate in the fire department and ambulance corps. That used to be much more of a thing years back than it is now. Like to make that to happen. I applaud the efforts to provide tax benefits for our first responders to make it more financially attractive. I'd like the board, when I'm back on the board, I'm going to make giving annual awards for a volunteer of the year and recognizing first responders at every meeting a priority. And then finally, years back, there used to be a volunteer day where all the departments would get together and table and let people know the benefits of volunteering. So I want to bring that back when I'm on the board.
Thank you. Thomas.
Okay, so I think this comes down to simple communication. I have a bunch of friends who have recently volunteered over in Bedford Village, and I asked them, how it came about, and a lot of them just did not know when they first moved up to town that these opportunities arose. And the more we have each of the individual fire departments and public service or emergency service entities out there getting the word out, looking at all of the benefits that they provide, and that the townspeople ultimately will receive, both emotionally and what they're doing for the town, but also the benefits that we as a town board have kept in place, and we've done that this year. But the communication is the biggest thing. Once they found out that they can volunteer, once they found out that there was really a big community of individuals who, were out there for the public service of and emergency service of all of the townspeople, we started to gain more people over here in Bedford Village. So I think we need to make a concerted effort to reach out further, to have maybe even more events that get the communication out there, that are recruiting for each of the 3 hamlets.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, this is a good question and an important one. I think Bedford's blessed to have a fire department in each hamlet, as well as an amazing ambulance corps, entirely reliant upon volunteers. I too would commend what the town has done to provide some additional tax breaks for volunteers. And I agree with the last 2 comments here. I think communication is a big positive step. I think I love Don's idea of recognition. That's always, it's nice to kind of put spotlights on some of our volunteers. Perhaps the introduction of a volunteer of the month or volunteer of the year award to kind of just call some attention to some of the amazing things that our neighbors are doing. I think recognition goes a long way in making people aware of the need as well as the benefits.
Thank you. Bobby.
I have to say, as a former EMT married to a lifelong first responder, I am so invested in this community and really aware of public safety needs, and really, really thankful for this question. As Mr. Scott suggested, we do encourage town employees to participate in call response. So that hasn't fallen away because of the town's response. I know that volunteerism since the 1980s and 90s has declined across all nonprofits and volunteer agencies. So that is something we need to work on. We are actually exploring LoSAP programs for ambulance corps, very much like the programs that are provided by the fire district. So we're working on that with the ambulance corps, and I'm working closely with the comptroller on that. We're discussing ways to publicly honor our long-term and retired first responders, as well as the ones who passed away. So that's something that's in the works. I'm not sure if you're going to be hearing about it at the next board meeting. It's coming up soon. We provided the maximum tax exemption that we could for first responders when that was authorized by New York State, and we're meeting regularly with our emergency responder agencies, which actually wasn't previously done. So I'm really proud of that. Thank you.
Thanks. 5th question. What are your thoughts on cell service in Bedford Village and the ongoing issues with the location of a cell tower? We will start with Thomas, please.
Wow, boy, do I love this question. As an individual who sat on the planning board reviewing countless wireless facility, I'll use the term wireless facility, applications, this one hits near and dear to me. I have analyzed a multitude of different applications. You asked my thoughts. My thoughts are that we are doing a wonderful job. Okay. We were steadfast in, turning down 2 locations that we knew were not the correct locations. And by correct, I mean minimizing the amount of wireless facilities we would need and expanding the service as much as we could. We ultimately, through the Wireless Facility Working Group, which again, I will say I am a member of, have counted numerous sites and flew multitude of different balloons many times for visual analysis to ultimately find a successful location by the Bedford Post-Inn. We eliminated, or actually settled, in court so that we can move this project along. And after a decade plus of somebody, Verizon, AT&T, looking for a wireless facility in Bedford Village, we successfully have that, and a permit is being pulled in the next couple months.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, there's no question that this issue of cell service in Bedford Village is a major concern. It's not only an inconvenience for those trying to make a phone call, but also a critical liability for our first responders. So I think it's a pretty straightforward decision. We need cell towers, and we have for a long time. I think what I've been frustrated with is the amount of money we've spent in costly litigation. As with most things, I believe thoughtful planning and consideration go a long way, as does transparency throughout the entire process. This shouldn't be earth-shattering, but it feels like our town board has made this more difficult than it should have been. And that's why I'm here tonight, to get out of this hamster wheel and move things forward.
Thank you. Bobby.
Yeah, so the town is obligated to follow federal law that mandates that we issue timely decisions on cell tower applications. And we just resolved an application that was dragging on for years, and we're finally delivering cell service to Bedford Village that residents and first responders have been clamoring for. We're filling a major gap in service, and we can now fill in proactively those smaller gaps in the least intrusive manner as provided by law, supporting the public safety goals, providing the support that many residents need, especially in an age where people have given up their landlines and they're working more often from home. Everyone agrees that there's a need, but not really how to provide it. And we faced the problem head on, and we found a solution and prevented the endless litigation that really plagued previous boards.
Thank you. Don. You're on mute, Don.
Sorry about that. Obviously, better cell coverage is vital for the convenience or quality of life issue for people that live in the community as well as first responders. The town has to take an active role in finding acceptable sites. We've done that when I was on the board. We had actually a multi-town committee that tried to collaborate to have to pick the best sites and help identify the best sites. I think the town has learned some expensive lessons about this, and they're much better than they used to be, but that's after spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers to defend siting decisions. Not all their fault, but we can do a better job. And we've got an active cell tower committee, but that's great. It continues on. A more proactive approach that involves stakeholders, that has to happen. And it's a fact that the federal government's putting more and more pressure on towns. We're going to have less and less of a say on siting decisions. So it's important to do a good job, be efficient, and get as many spots covered as we can.
Thank you.
Next rebuttal.
Rebuttal. Yes.
Hands up. Okay, so everybody is aware the town was proactive and is still proactive in siting wireless facilities. And this comes again in the means of the wireless facility working group. And a lot of people don't know even what we do. We had two consultants, one to site emergency service towers and one to site wireless facility towers. And this was a goal to get ahead of A, the developers, and B, the companies looking to develop. Okay, Verizon's and AT&T. So the town has actually been proactive. We have a comprehensive plan for both emergency service towers and for wireless facility towers. So we have an idea, okay, documented with data, its coverage maps to be proactive in siting towers.
Thank you. Next question. What steps would you take to put our town on a firmer financial footing without raising taxes? We start with Mike, please.
Yeah, this is an important question too. I think it requires a thorough examination of our budget and a rigorous evaluation of every expenditure. Do we need this? Are there alternative options? Can we obtain grant money to fund projects as opposed to asking taxpayers to do it? As I mentioned before, that's one of my bigger concerns over the last 2 years. I don't think that this town board has been proactive in identifying and pursuing grants, and that's a huge missed opportunity. I thought they dropped the ball in 22 in regards to the New York Forward grant for Bedford Hills, and they didn't even bother applying for it this year. The fact of the matter is modest tax increases here in Bedford over the past decade have surpassed those in neighboring towns of Somers, Lewisboro, and Pound Ridge. So to me, holding the line on taxes is a top priority of mine, and I'll work tirelessly over the next 4 years to do so.
Thank you. Bobby, please.
Sure. So one of my priorities when I joined the board and as liaison to the finance department was to curb spending. And we reviewed spending and the policies so that we could cut waste and ensure that our tax dollars were being spent judiciously. I noticed that we had outstanding escrow. My predecessor had not pursued it, nor had he implemented policy to ensure that we don't lose these funds going forward. So I worked with the finance and planning departments to reconcile these accounts, tighten up our policies so the town wouldn't continue to lose money. And, you know, much of this work was behind the scenes, but it also took a lot of time and effort and some ingenuity, which saved the taxpayers money and allowed us to allocate it towards services. And we actually applied for and receive a large number of grants. And just in the last 4 years, they totaled millions of dollars. That's publicized at every board meeting where we approve them. So there's really no truth to that accusation.
Thank you. Don. Muted again, Don.
Got a bad habit with that, but taxes are like gaining weight, and I know a little something about that. A pound here, a pound there each year, and all of a sudden you're overweight, and you got to do something about it. It's the same story here in our town with respect to when comparing ourselves to our neighbors, as Mike pointed out. A few ideas to improve things. One, zero-based budgeting as a discipline. In other words, any new spending has to be offset with a budget cut. Publish a no personnel replacement budget every year. Every year, every retirement is an opportunity for productivity-based savings. We need to look at what's nice to have versus what the things that we have to have. And I invite you to go look at our website as at 101 Ideas for Bedford, because many of them are budget focused and talking about how we can keep tap the brakes on tax increases.
Thank you. Thomas.
A couple thoughts on this. Again, we are looking line by line, and we're in the middle of budget season as a town board right now at our budget. And we look every single line of every single department on how we can either hold the line or reduce it. Certain things we can't really touch. You know, CBAs are negotiated, and that's that. Negotiating CBAs is what I do for a living, as a matter of fact. So we've been intimately looking at our CBAs and the increase in salaries to our personnel. I think one of the biggest things is, and Don, you touched upon it, is efficiency. If something has to go up by a percentage, then you look at how we can increase the efficiency to bring the cost down. Okay. The other thing I'm thinking we can do, and I've said this before, when it comes to budgeting, is just look at what we've done in the past. And like Don, you had mentioned, is it a want or is it a need? I say the same thing to my kids. Okay. If it's a want, it's got to be justified and possibly offset. If it's a need, okay, we're okay with it. But again, it doesn't preclude us from offsetting it with a cost savings. And we're doing that right now. And we're in those budget work sessions. And again, it's open to the public. I implore everybody to do so. Come look, but we're doing that right now.
Thank you. Next question. Bedford housing, retail, and services can be very expensive for low to moderate income people and seniors on a fixed income. What steps have you taken, or what do you propose the town should do to address the affordability issue? We will start with Bobby, please.
Sure. So obviously our overarching priority is to provide a good quality of life, and we can do it by providing a high level of services at a minimal cost and addressing the issue of affordability. We've adopted tax exemptions for seniors, veterans, and first responders. I think that's been mentioned. We are partnering with Habitat for Humanity to offer state grants to moderate income residents who want to build or modify ADUs on their property. We secure millions of dollars of grants, which, allow us to do everything from major infrastructure and traffic safety improvements to building the inclusive playground, subsidizing senior wellness needs, freeing up tax dollars for other services, and allowing us to hold the line on taxes and stay under the tax cap, despite challenges of lower revenues. But we also approved housing that incorporates affordable units, and we're investing in infrastructure. It allows other cost-saving measures, and these things across the board are helping residents to save money.
Thank you. Don.
The first thing we can do to make it affordable for people that are on a fixed income is hold the line on taxes. We can do a better job at that. We need to compare ourselves to our peer communities around us to see how they do it, because we need to do a better job. Affordable housing is important to me. And I think that although we've had some successes in bringing some affordable housing to Bedford, I think that there's much more that can be done. I serve on the board of an affordable housing advocacy organization called Allied Community Enterprises, and it's very difficult bringing affordable housing online. Bedford actually has one of the most cutting edge accessory dwelling unit laws in the state. It's not well publicized, but it should be, because it's a way to give affordable opportunities for housing to people that want to live in the community. As far as shopping opportunities and those kinds of things. That's hard for a town to do, but I will say part of the planning process is to incent businesses and identify businesses to come into town that perhaps aren't the most expensive stores. And I think that's something that the town can play a role in.
Thank you. Thomas.
So Don, I have to agree with you on this. The first thing I was going to say is just that is the one thing that the town can do in addition to what we're already doing. And Mrs. Bidker had talked about all the things that we are doing and have done in the recent years and in the future is, bring in more opportunity. Again, this goes back to Hamlet vitality and economic stability and growth, is bring in more businesses that can cater to and afford, an individual or a family that's on a fixed budget, the opportunity to, spend, the same amount of money or X dollars on their, necessities every month or every year, while not blowing out their budget. I have two parents who are retired, always looking for an affordable housing, opportunity over here in Bedford or Chappaqua. Affordable housing is another step that I think we can take. And we are constantly looking at it. I mean, there's applications in the town right now. There's applications I've looked at on the planning board where we are proactive in looking for affordable housing and approving it. I've worked with Blue Mountain Housing Group and hopefully we'll continue to do so. But again, offering, individuals who are on a fixed budget options, I think is something that we can do definitely a better job, and I will do if reelected.
Thank you. Mike, please.
Yeah, I think affordability is a real concern these days. I do believe, we need to trust that we have the right leaders in Washington and Albany working for us there. And I think our role here in the town board is to focus on taxes, as we mentioned. And we talked about before, but our taxes have increased quite a bit over the last decade, and we need to figure that piece out. I mentioned before reviewing our budget, and then the grant piece, and I'll expound upon that. I think we need to figure out, with so much money being thrown out by Albany, how do we consider having a grant writer on retainer who is squarely focused on applying for each and every one that we're eligible for, and that'll keep taxes down and help with affordability for sure.
Thank you. Next question. The town's efforts with Bedford 2030 focus on reducing carbon emissions. Meanwhile, the changing climate brings increasingly dramatic weather. What measures do you propose the town should take to be more resilient in the face of extreme weather? We'll start with Don, please.
First of all, Bedford 2030 is the most frequent presenter to our town board and has a very close relationship and does a wonderful job aiming at the global issues related to climate change. But you correctly point out that we need to climate change proof our communities as well, and there's a few areas. One is flood planning and drainage planning. There's a lot more that can be done in terms of, I live next to a creek in Katona that when they had the flood many years back, flooded downtown Katona. There are things that can be done to improve our flood protection. We need to build a comprehensive emergency plan and share that and promote it with our communities. And I think we also need to strengthen the grid. We can do more than just yell at NYSAG and Con Ed when the lights go out. There's more that we can be much more proactive about that. And then finally, we need to preserve our wetlands and our forest. I was happy to serve as a wetlands commissioner. Wetlands are vital to protect.
You're over time. I'm sorry, Don.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Next, Thomas, please.
Okay. Again, great question, Alice. This is one question that I'm actually active in the answer. So we've recently gone, into contract with 425 Cherry Street to remove all carbon emissions and gas-fired heating from that particular town building. That's step one. They're going to switch to all electric air source heat pump, which will make them carbon neutral. We're going to do the same at 321 at town hall, which was again a replication of what they did at the community house, Mike, across from you. A comprehensive emergency plan, I think these days is something that is an inevitability. We are seeing extreme flood measures. We are seeing extreme power outages, especially again in Bedford Village, but also in Bedford Hills and Katona. And when that happens, individuals like the elderly who have prescription medications in their refrigerator need electricity, need to keep them refrigerated. This is vital and critical to their health. I think there's also something to be said about, solar. This is when I was on the planning board, we were constantly looking at solar, the application of solar, where we can use it, where it works and where it doesn't work. And also EV stations. If we continue to install those in our town and our community, that will help as well.
Thank you. Bobby.
I think you skipped me, no?
Oh, did I?
After Tom? Does that work for you?
Yes, I'm sorry. I did. I apologize.
No offense taken. I agree here with Don. I think Bedford 2030 definitely is looking long-term. To me, the town board should be focused on short-term impacts. I think we need to have a well-documented and accessible emergency plan, one that clearly identifies where residents can go when the power goes out. And then create rules for when warming and cooling centers are made available. I know last year on Christmas Day, we lost power. So it's happening more and more. We need to make sure that our residents understand where to go and what happens when that happens. I also think we need to work with utilities to start making the case for some underground power lines. There's a lot of areas here in Bedford that often lose power for days on end. What can we do to stop that long term?
Thank you. Bobby.
Sure. So we adopted an aggressive climate action plan, which was proposed by Bedford 2030. They helped Bedford become a New York State leader in sustainability. I was instrumental in creating the Comprehensive Emergency Management Planning Task Force, which evaluated our needs. And now we're in the early planning stages of developing the Office of Emergency Management, which is going to coordinate services. We actually just met last week with the stakeholders about bolstering our Emergency Operations Center, which is responsible for disaster response. I agree with Mr. Scott. We have to maintain and maximize the use of our wetlands and flood protection. The Bedford Police Department actually just developed a new app to improve communications with the public. And we're continuing to work proactively to improve our disaster response and connect with the utility companies and partner with the first responder agencies, because I think this is really a multifaceted priority. Sorry.
Thank you. Final question. The town's capital plan sets forth the major investments the town will make in infrastructure over the next 10 years. What do you believe should be the priorities when considering capital projects? We'll start with Thomas.
Okay, I'll touch upon, cell service and emergency service again. I think that's number one. I think that is paramount when situations that we just spoke about occur, when we have natural, issues with flooding or power outages. And again, we are proactive in that. I think that's priority number one, because that takes, our emergency service providers, and it gives them the ability to get to the townspeople in the event of emergencies, whether it's personal, whether it's environmental. I think also improving infrastructure with our sewers. I think sewers lead to businesses, and we've all been talking about, all four of us, the same thing: business and hamlet vitality. And the sewers are the linchpin to opening up businesses of all different types. So I've always been a proponent of, I'd like to keep Bedford money in Bedford, instead of taking Bedford money and going outside of it to, let's say, get a bagel on a Sunday in Bedford Village, because I can't do that right now. I also want to drive business vitality and hamlet vitality, because I'm also a proponent of bringing money from outside of Bedford into Bedford and make it a place that people from Connecticut or Chappaqua or Armonk or Greenwich want to come and spend a day and give ourselves some additional revenue, because we've been talking about taxes and we all know we need it.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, for starters, I'd like to see more transparency into our capital plan. I think we need to make the community aware of what's in it and make sure that our residents are in agreement. It's something that Don and I did with our 101 Ideas for Bedford, having discussions and taking feedback into consideration for everything we're doing. That's how the capital plan should be structured as well. And we have a bunch of ideas outlined in our list of 101. To me, the most important one, I think, is roads, which is I think the most important function for a town government. They need to be safe, free of potholes and clear of snow. Another one is our beautiful parks and recs facilities, which Bedford's lucky to have. These things require investment to maintain, and we need to make sure that we're addressing that.
Thank you. Bobby.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, it's important that we balance the need of all three hamlets, because they are unique, but they have unique needs. We have to maintain the high level of services and the facilities. And I agree that we need to take into account the feedback from residents, but We also rely heavily upon the staff who we hire for their expertise, and they set the tone for what's needed dependent upon what they see as the priorities for their departments. And we hire them for their expertise, and we rely heavily upon what they say they need, taking into account what the residents say they want for the town. And we have an open process where we just had a very public meeting about the budget, but also about the capital plan. And we are going to be referring to the capital plan in another public meeting.
Thank you. And Don, please.
Let's unmute myself here for starters, so they don't have to yell at me. Any case, I agree with Mike. We need more transparency. One of the things that I had started, and I think it was abandoned when I was on the board, is a transparency portal that allows you to compare our budgets with other budgets around the community. Several towns run these. In addition, with this type of transparency portal, you can follow all the capital plans from paving to building buildings and refurbishing things, and see in pictures what's being done and how. Our pools are, the three pools that we have in the three hamlets are private club experiences practically, and we need to take care of them. We have some major expenses coming down the road as far as refurbishing filter systems and rebuilding the pools themselves. Roads, obviously, one of the most important things that we do. And I'll also say that water, we've got town systems that are having issues with contaminants, and we need to really invest in that. And also we need to look at, we sit on an aquifer that feeds people's wells. We need to be proactive as a town to understand how to keep that drinking water safe.
Thank you. We'll now move to closing statements. As I said earlier, closing statements will be given in the reverse order from the opening statements, and each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to make their closing statements. So we will start with Don, please.
Sure. Again, thank you for putting this on. Thank my fellow candidates for volunteering to run and for serving their community. I've really enjoyed the campaign. It's not over. We've got some time to go, but some observations. One, campaigns increasingly become a partisan food fight. You know, vote for my team because I'm on my team, or vote for that team. Vote Democratic because I'm a Democrat. You know what? Local government is about local things, and we need to get focused on the skill sets of the people, the specific things that they were going to do, and we have to have a commitment to a diversity. Not only of ethnic diversity, but also a diversity of ideas. And we need to have the full spectrum of ideas sitting up there. The competition breeds better ideas than no competition. I want a board that represents a diversity of thought and willingness to work hard to get things done. Our campaign has been about ideas. It's been about energy, and it's been about specific things that we can do to make this town better. So please take a look at it. By the time Election Day rolls around, I bet you our 101 ideas will be 201 ideas, because most of it was generated at coffee shops and at doorsteps, and you need to engage with the community that you serve. And I will continue to do that. As I said, I bring some gray hair and some wisdom and some experience to this board. And I look forward to working hard to keep what keeps Bedford, Bedford, but also make it better and meet the challenges that lie ahead. So thank you very much for participating.
Thank you. Bobby.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for providing this forum. Being on the town board is hard work. On any given day, I could be found researching town laws or water system remediation, reviewing purchase orders, writing grants, attending conferences, drafting policy, or even answering texts from constituents at midnight. This work is a true calling. The preparation and work that happens behind the scenes builds the foundation for the many services and facilities we provide, and at a minimal cost to taxpayers. As a result, more and more residents across our hamlets are telling me there has never been more to do in Bedford, and that Bedford Hills has never looked better. There's more work to do, but we're so proud of these efforts. The tide is turning, and it shows. We've cut the building department backlog, increased library funding, and are finally bringing cell service to Bedford Village after 6 years of stagnation. I'm running for another term so we can continue changing Bedford for the better, making improvements where necessary, but never changing the fundamental essence of our town that brought me and so many others to Bedford. This is a great place to raise a family. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, please.
Yes, and thank you again for the opportunity. In closing, I'm running because I know I can do better. And as Don alluded to, it's not because I believe that one party's approach is better than the others. I think Bedford can benefit from having some balance at the leadership level. To me, that's what drives communities forward. It creates an environment with diverse perspectives and robust conversations. These things are important when addressing complex issues that we currently face. And I am eager to do that here in Bedford. I've enjoyed running. I've enjoyed meeting with many of you, and I really hope to gain your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And Thomas, please.
Okay, off mute finally. Okay, and again, a thanks goes out again to the League of Women Voters for the forum, and a thanks goes out to the other three candidates. It's, again, my first go around with this. I did thoroughly enjoy it, and it was really something that was a learning experience, and for that, I'm very appreciative. I will say this over and over again, and Don, you might remember it from when you appointed me to the planning board. I love this town. I love everything about this town, and I said it to Supervisor Burdick at the time. Sometimes you have to come from somewhere else to really understand and appreciate what you have inside of where you are now. And I am an individually born and raised Rockland County individual out of New City, and Bedford has hit home to me as a community that is just unbelievably magical, is the term I used. My passion for the town and its well-being is unwavering. Continuing to improve these aspects of Bedford while maintaining its natural beauty and charm and character is always something I felt was very paramount. I bring to the table a very specific skill set. It's analytical, it's practical, it's reasonable, it's data-driven, it's information-based, and that's the approach that I unfortunately or fortunately have to have as an engineer. I complete that skill set with, again, being a business owner and constantly looking at financials and labor rates and costs of raw materials and looking at how we can bring those down and work efficiently. I was, again, an individual who is very, very, very strict on and involved in green and sustainability with the High Performance Building Commission. I think we need to continue that, which is holding landlord individuals accountable for living conditions for renters. I will never stop working for the betterment of Bedford and its people. I've done so for almost 7 years now. And if elected to the board, I will continue to invoke the positive change that Bedford needs.
Okay. Well, thank you to both the candidates and the audience. A reminder that the forum is being recorded and it will be available to you on the sponsoring league's website until Election Day, which is November 7th. I also want to remind you of the unique and important role played by the League of Women Voters here in our community and across all the country. The League works to register voters, educate them on the issues of the day, and to protect their right to vote. Your local league is made up of volunteers who devote their time and energy. Your participation and your assistance are always welcome. Important dates. Early voting takes place on Saturday, October 28th through Sunday, November 5th. The early voting polling locations can be found at the Westchester Board of Elections website. And then on Election Day, you can vote only at your assigned polling location. To confirm your polling location, you can visit vote411.org or the New York State Board of Elections website to use their voter lookup service. I want to stress that elections are not a spectator sport, so please get out there and vote. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.